Welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Irrigation Training Series. I'm your host, Richard Restuccia, and today we're going to be talking about something that just is getting more and more popular every day, and that is indoor irrigation and indoor growing. You know, indoor irrigation, indoor growing offers a lot of benefits, right? The consistency of your water can be better. The efficiency of the applications can be much higher. You've got this ability to really be precise with your water, and it's easy to control. And these are all the great benefits, but those benefits come with some costs as well, including things like system being fairly complex. The cost might be a little higher. Maintenance might be a bigger challenge. And there's a few other things that you'll have to deal with as well. But fortunately, helping us deal with these challenges and really hitting the biggest challenges, the three biggest challenges that you're going to face that are going to take most of your time is Michael Derwenko. He's going to help us with some great solutions here. Now, those of you who have watched Michael before know that Michael's got a great full circle education on irrigation. He started as a contractor working for his father many years ago. He's worked in the manufacturing industry as well. He's been here at JAIN with us for the past 8 years. Congratulations, Michael, on that. And he's really become a well-known expert in the area of indoor irrigation. So, Michael, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Michael, I'm just watching your videos blow up on YouTube on indoor irrigation. For a while, we thought that maybe the demand for indoor irrigation was declining pretty rapidly, but based on what I'm seeing on the views of your videos, they're big. There's got to be a lot of people out there still interested. Are you getting lots of questions? How's all that going?
Well, there's a specific request with what we deal with, being such a large manufacturer with so many components. There's literal ebbs and flows of support needed, promotion needed. And so sometimes the promotional videos are more popular. Sometimes support videos are more popular, depending on where we're at in the market. It's a very good pulse. And right now, the support stuff is very popular. So what we did is, we had done a similar topic a few weeks ago, and we thought that pinpointing a few of the topics that I get the most questions on, and isolating those into a deck and hopefully presenting those today so people can listen to it in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So, okay. So today we're really going to be talking about the top three issues, right, that people are going to face. And more importantly, and I love it, right, because a lot of people just talk about the problem, but you're going to provide some good solutions. And that's really key.
Yeah. It's like you said in the intro, the control aspect. That's why we bring everything indoors. We really want to control all the variables, and we're fortunate enough to know how to control the variables. So when I hear problems, they end up being consistent. And there tends to be, more solutions than there is problems to say. And so knowing and what we've seen over the years, it makes it very easy for me to come into it from a positive standpoint where I feel like everything's kind of easy to solve at this point, which I think a lot of growers take to heart. And that's why we've had the success we've had.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, listen, I want to remind everybody, I've got the Q&A open. I've got the chat open. So if you have some questions that you want Michael to address today, put them in there and I'll ask them when it's appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah. And the questions that I got, specifically were based on the criteria was basically, do I hear it every day or do I hear it within every 2 or 3 days? And there's three very popular challenges that come up. And not only do I want to cover it, but I do want to cover the solutions, or at least bring up the forum for people to ask the questions specifically for what they want. As we know, or as we've learned, especially myself, while we might not have, we have participants live, we know that people tend to listen to this over the coming weeks as they have time to listen to it. So typically when I talk through it and I work through it, I can tell you that if we have, 300 or 400 people on here, I'm going to end up talking to 15 or 20 of them directly afterwards and filling them in. So if I breeze through stuff in this half hour, more than anything, I'm trying to open up the conversation and give you the bullet points, and you can always reach out to me with specific questions, because I know there's typically debate on my solutions and typically debate on my challenges. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, that's great. And at the end, you'll give everybody your contact information, right? So that they can reach you when it's convenient.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody that's watched these knows that I get back to them, whether or not it's good news or bad news, but I have no problem getting back to everybody.
Okay, super. Thank you, Michael.
So that being said, we're going to address kind of the top 3 challenges that I get confronted with on a daily or weekly basis with irrigation specifically. That is kind of my forte when it comes to growing mediums, lights, all these other slip and fall liabilities, insurance, and business loans. I am not the guy to talk to, but when it comes to irrigation and some forms of drainage, I feel like I've been in enough rooms that I could walk you through the process. And so we're going to talk about a few of the challenges. We're going to talk about what we as a manufacturer have done, want to do, and are looking forward to doing in the future as far as innovation and community outreach is and feedback is with indoor growers. So we're going to go over some of those things today in the time we have, and then as Richard said, we welcome the questions. A couple of the 3 major challenges that I get dealt with are component clogging is the first one by far. When we deal with systems that have very low flow with small orifices, clogging is going to be close to the top. And so we're going to review a couple of solutions for that, and maybe some ROI on solutions, and then also some solutions that have been shied away from by the industry for certain reasons. Automation is another one that creates some confusion with a lot of indoor growers. A lot of the devices were built and designed and engineered for outdoor growing. Indoor growing, the indoor controller market is still evolving. So there's a little bit of a hybrid technology that needs to exist. And so there's I don't even want to say confusion, some frustration that exists with automating valves and irrigation systems indoors. And so we'll touch on that. And then inconsistent flows. We have a lot of devices with those small orifices. We have a lot of them because we're typically growing a lot of plants inside. With control comes quantity. We want to be able to grow as many things as fast as possible, indoors as safe as possible. And when we do that, the liability goes up for flows being inconsistent. And our devices try their best, but with that many, data points out there, there's bound to be one that it raises an issue.
Michael, you think the component clogging is bigger with indoor growers because they're using things like compost teas and other mixtures like that create this, or are there other reasons why this happened?
Well, outside, so we're using pop-ups and rotors. Overhead irrigation, typically the orifice is so much bigger, the pressure is higher, there's so much more force behind the water, behind the mass. So you're pushing any debris out. I've been doing some side work on the weekends to help out some friends and dealing with pop-ups and rotors again. And I just have a grin on my face. I'm like, all this pressure and there's no clogging. Like, if a nozzle's clogged, there's been a substantial break in the system with not good flushing when the repair was done. Inside, I think all growers and myself can attest, you can have the cleanest system possible, but all of a sudden a little emitter starts flickering with air, and the next thing you know, it's clogged. And I kind of equate it to standing in one of those machines trying to catch dollar bills. Eventually, one of those dollar bills is going to go right in the outlet hole. And that's why we try to keep it as clean as possible. But I think that's why it's just, it's a question of numbers. There's so many little holes that one of them is going to get clogged. That's why we try to keep prices low.
What I think is interesting too is people think, well, a lot of this is municipal water, so it's clean, right? Do we even need to filter it? I think they're surprised when they find out what's actually, in the water, right? There's some pretty big pieces of debris.
Well, I think, most growers, middle scale and up, are putting the water in a reservoir. So they're catching it in a reservoir. They're either mixing their teas in that, or a secondary reservoir is being used to mix the teas and the nutrients together. And then it's ultimately going through some form of fertigation, if not an RO system or cooling of some sort. So you're trying to break down the water, the nutrient molecules as much as possible, but it's inevitable. And the reservoir issue, with JAIN, we don't really deal with reservoirs. Avid Water now does. They deal with reservoirs because, specifically in the South, we get a lot of nutrients that float to the surface. On the West Coast, the nutrients are just going to clump at the bottom. And so mixing the reservoirs is huge. Sometimes labor intensive, but also a huge unknown. I can't tell you how many reservoirs people are like, oh, we mix it up when we put it together and then it waters for the next 3 days. Well, over those 3 days, we get some sediment that sits, depending on where the suction for the reservoir is, typically at the bottom, it goes in there and gets clogged. Now, what I wanted to touch on here specifically was I get some pushback with the filter and flushing, or I have over the past few months, because this is something that we, or myself, really push. Filtering does lead to more maintenance, but the maintenance that you're going to, the time you're spending cleaning a filter out, figuring out the flushing, or how to displace the nutrients that are coming in the water that's coming out of the flushing system, is you're going to capitalize on that time much more, creating these singular maintenance points as opposed to dealing with clogging, inconsistent clogging across emitters. And so primary and secondary flushing is so crucial. And a filter is not the answer. A filter is not going to solve the problem. If you have clogging in your emitters daily, a filter is going to save you weekly, basically clogging. You're still going to have to clean your filters out. You still need to dial in your microns. We make different filters for a reason, depending on the T's that are going through there. Let's get your microns dialed in. That's going to lessen the time you're maintaining your system. So there are ways to kind of reduce maintenance time, even though we are creating more maintenance points, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I see that. That's an interesting way to distinguish there.
Yeah, and in landscape irrigation outside with pop-ups and rotors, everything's got a basket in it. The pop-up's got a nozzle basket. The rotor has a basket. So instead, when we bring everything indoors and we start working with lower pressures, what we do is, as a manufacturer, and most manufacturers do this, it's a nod to the industry, is all these devices and components we're talking about, like the ones I have on the screen right now, have some form of filtration inside of them, whether or not it's like a labyrinth or kind of a cyclone or like a turbulent flow where it's moving debris to the sides and self-flushing the next time. So manufacturers have taken this into account. Now, in the 80s and 90s, I can't say that was necessarily true, but there has been some breakthroughs and evolutions in emitters. So I like to tell people all the time is like our click tip that's right here in the middle does a very good job of knowing or coming into contact with debris, but not allowing it to become a failure. And then the next time the system comes on, it flushes it out. And so there's good emitters, and then there's poor emitters that you can buy some at the retail level. And when your plants indoors are worth them as much money as they are with the liability involved, you want to make sure you're using something that's going to deliver water consistently.
Yeah, and so Michael, this device here that's black with the red ring around it, what in the world is that?
So the one on the left is a set emitter. That's a take apart emitter. Some emitters in our JAIN emitter in the bottom left, sometimes growers like to be able to take the emitter actually apart and flush it out, use it as a flushing point or see what's in there and clean it out. The one on the top left has a barb, so you can connect 1/4-inch tubing to it. It's an easy solution to pressure compensate feeder tubes. And on the right is our air relief valve. Well, it's a combination air relief flush valve. It does two things. All these emitters are very prone to clogging when air is introduced into the lines. When we get air, they are not made to move debris through themselves with air, but only with water. So if debris is in water, they can clean themselves out pretty well. The turbulence from air can cause issues. And so what that air relief valve does is it eliminates air when the system turns on and when the system turns off. And then it also on the bottom of it has some outlets that are going to push some of the bigger clumps of nutrients out, hoping to, like I said, minimize debris in the system. When you're doing this at an automatic level, the human error goes out the window, basically, because I love people telling me that a ball valve is the same thing. And it's just simply asking someone to walk over and open a ball valve is not the same as something automatically doing it every time. And to put a 5-gallon bucket under that, it's going to save you some troubles.
Yeah, I would say in the last 9 years with JAIN, when I show people the automatic flush valve, this is the thing they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know about that. They see the value of it, right? So here's a big value item that many people are not using that's going to solve them, save a lot of time and effort down the road.
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time. If you don't know the technology, email me. I'll send you a sample, because once you try it, I can't tell you. I would say of all the products we sell online, it's the number one product that we sell one of, and then we sell more of to the same person, because they buy it as a sample. It's what, $4 or $5. They put them on there because they're telling me that the ball valve's not going to work. They try it out, and within a few days, they've bought a dozen of them for every line. Every line should have one of these at the end of it. And as soon as you eliminate the loop style systems that a lot of growers are using with a dead end, with the reliance of a human to open it and close it, your odds of consistency go up. And that control aspect is why we're doing this inside, or we're just losing everything.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Next one, automation. There's a lot of confusion around automation. And some of the things that we've come across, I won't bother reading what's on the screen. Everybody has the slide to be able to read for reference. But one of the things that I've been getting lately is, landscape valves. The market is slowly evolving. We have very high-end valves that are basically automated ball valves. They are just what they sound like. They're a ball valve. The mechanism is actually a valve that turns and opens. They require, more power, more technology to go into that, thus more money. So they cost a considerable amount of money. But the workaround is to use lower priced landscape valves. Well, as someone that's been in the landscape manufacturing field for 15 years, I've been using them for another 15. I can tell you a lot of engineering time has gone in to build and manufacture controllers and valves that talk to each other well. This takes into account people working in the rain, people putting their hands into pits of water when there's electricity from valves going into them, two-wire systems that are moving information. So that has evolved. That evolution has not carried over into the market that we deal with indoors. And so is it happening? It is. But right now we are once again dealing with a hybrid technology. So a lot of the support that I deal with is other manufacturers dosing controllers, fertigation controllers that are dosing and distributing water and nutrients at a very low level, with systems like ours that are emission devices delivering low level, but valves that need a lot of water to move through them to work properly. So there are some complexities at that level. That's why I hope you can lean on us as a manufacturer for support, because if you're using a JAIN product at any point in that that system or algorithm, we're willing to help you. But one of the kind of challenges is we've had is when you're applying water at a very slow, low level, globe valves, just because of the mechanics inside of them, can only open and close so fast. So there becomes a challenge. And so this black valve that I have here, there is a diaphragm like the back of the flapper in the back of your toilet, and it requires a certain amount of atmospheric pressure above and beyond to open and close. Well, when you start to deal with low flows and very fast amounts of water, there's no way physically water can open and close. Imagine when you flush your toilet too fast. It's not going to open and close as fast as you want it to. Same thing is here. So a ball valve kind of works, the physics of it work around that. They are very expensive though, and this goes back to ROI. If you're growing 3,000 plants and your valve costs you $400, it's like solar panels in Florida. I pay $100 a month for power. What was it out in California, Richard? 500. So all of a sudden the technology makes sense where you're at, doesn't make sense where I'm at. The same is true here. And so I just want the market to be sure, and the industry to be clear on, be wary of the manufacturer that you're dealing with, and are they willing to support it? I turn down people a lot of times with our valves because I tell them, my valve will not open and close every 5 seconds like you want it to. That's a very precise valve, and you're looking at anywhere from $400 to $1,200 for something that'll do that.
Yeah, so interesting. It oftentimes comes down to a financial decision.
I mean, it should always start with the financial decision. I think when you're first building the system, the automated ball valve makes sense, but a lot of growers that put a lot of money into their infrastructure up front, and they have these beautiful systems, quickly learn that personnel management might be the struggle, or quality control of the actual plants might be a struggle. So you're always going to have some challenges. Being able to adapt to those challenges is huge. I always say start at the bottom and work your way up. I mean, learn how to navigate around a globe valve, around watering by the minute instead of the second. And then in a year, 2 years after you've got some yields under your cap, then start thinking about $400 or $500 ball valves. Work the opposite way, but I understand how funding works, and sometimes you got to go big right off the bat.
Yeah. Okay. Great advice. Thank you.
Inconsistent flows is another one I get. When it comes to inconsistent flows, the biggest thing that I want to state here is the components we deal with are very much they're mechanical in nature. They are they're receiving variables and dealing with them the best they can. So if an octobubbler that has 8 outlets has a couple of those outlets not performing like the others, something tells me that they're not getting the operating specs that they need. It's not that that octobubbler hates you and is torturing you with just 2 or 3 problems of the 8. Typically that means that there's something from an operating specification that it's not receiving, whether or not it be enough water to distribute the, in this case, 0.17 gallons per minute per outlet, or pressure where we need anywhere from 15 to 40 PSI. Sometimes when you get 50 PSI, you got a lot of water and a lot of energy, or excuse me, a lot of energy with not a lot of water. It becomes very hard to distribute that water consistently across all the outlets. So just because that's the number one thing I get is I got plenty of pressure, I got plenty of water. Well, how much pressure do you have? 80 PSI. Yeah, well, it works. That also is a problem. Just like too little pressure is a problem, too much pressure, that little diaphragm inside the octobubbler, the device is just humming, trying to maintain distribution, much less in this case the flow outlets distributing the amount of water that we need consistently. So we want to work within the operating specs. The number one, when I get the question, typically I get multiple paragraphs of what's going on in their system. I respond with asking the question, do you have this operating spec, and are you giving each device this much water? And I ask those questions and I never hear from people again. So I know that it's either the 5 gallon bucket challenge that they're figuring out and going, he's right, I'm only getting 3 gallons per minute. There's no way that I could provide this octobubbler with enough water, or this is a fire hose at the end and I have 60 PSI. So it all really comes down to pressure regulation and having the right amount of flow to distribute, just like pop-ups or rotors outside, overhead irrigation. Inside, we're trying to maintain things in a very captive system. There's not as much margin for error, which I think takes people by surprise sometimes.
Yeah. And, sometimes I think about this, Michael, and I just, I pull my hair out. I think it's so complicated. But on the other hand, it's very easy to know those specs to work within. And then it's just a matter of basic math. It's arithmetic to figure out if you're inside those, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I think there's a step missing with most growers. And what's happening is the way that the variables are being delivered to us, and from basically I represent a support network as a manufacturer, but any contractor or anybody, it's missing a step. We do this every week, or I do this as much as I can to get out there, and I get great questions, but a lot of it is, here are my system specs. And I can just tell by the way that the system specs are being delivered that there's a step in between. And in overhead irrigation, we would say it's a licensed or installation contractor that's going to take those specs, combine with the manufacturer knowledge that we have, and install the system. But with indoor growers, the majority of indoor growers are doing it themselves. And if you can imagine a homeowner putting a 12-zone rotor system in with a trencher in their front yard, you could understand how, when I get the synopsis of somebody's system, I'm thinking like, we're so far away from where we need to be just by the information you're giving me. And so we're going to try our best to support, and that kind of segues into my new user number one topic here. And we're going to try our best to support it. But I would say, a lot of times I share these links for these videos because that middle step, I think we do help solve with a lot of these webinars. And people come back and go, okay, now I understand how this device works and what I need to do to get me one step closer. And then they don't need our help, or they come back with more knowledge that's going to help us move down the road and save us that in between step. So I do see an evolution in the market in growers. That is the good news. But we get a lot of new users. And I go back to the installation in the front of somebody's house. We also teach contractors on the landscape side. We teach a lot of new contractors how to use pressure regulation and drip irrigation and things like that. So there's challenges across everything.
Yeah, and so one thing I'm definitely hearing is I better keep your contact information close by because I can reach out when I do have questions. And just to clarify, is there a charge for that?
No, I mean, the charge is just you got to use our product. As someone that's been doing it a long time, anyone that knows my support, you can send me photos initially of our competition's product and I'll keep helping you. But if I've helped you and then I start seeing shiny new competitors' products in there, I'm probably going to ask you to call their 800 number because there is, you know, anybody that works in irrigation knows that support sets everything apart. We can all have apples to apples products, but support is huge. And any customer that works with me knows how passionate I am about supporting them. And I think that that's leaps and bounds. And so it's also very difficult with the manufacturing, like the product knowledge I have to support other people's products. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to bring your Chevy to a Toyota dealership and then complain that the firmware update isn't accurate. So, I mean, it's all relative to that, but we don't charge anything for that. We got a great new group with Avid Water that does it on the ag side, which, you know, hopefully one day landscape could benefit from that, because I do think consistent industry knowledge of installation practices along with manufacturing is huge. A lot of times we have the architect, specifier, the contractor, and then the manufacturer. And, you know, we rely on the sales team to communicate kind of the evolution of where we need to go in those markets. And I think bringing them under one umbrella was a really neat thing that we did with Avid. And I hope to do that with a support network for what we do for indoor growers.
Yeah, I think right, the network, right, sharing the information. This is what's so important because we all learn. If we all learn from our own experience, and we can just multiply that by, you know, hundreds of times if we also get the benefit of other people's experience.
Exactly. And so to kind of to wrap up some of the solutions for the challenges that I proposed earlier, you know, one of the biggest things is, once again, when we're digging a ditch outside, it's usually 12 to 18 inches. Boom, pipe goes in the ground. It's either thin wall or Schedule 40. Your variables. We've done a great job over the last 60, 70 years. How old's, I hate to say it, Rainbird, 80 years. We've evolved a lot since brass impacts at the Beverly Hills Country Club. You know, so the variables that exist for outdoor landscape systems have slowly been engineered around, but there's a reason our emitter line has seen the technology and innovation it has, and all these different things have. Those variables have taken a long time to engineer around. We still have those inside, so we're basically engineering around that. Not to mention we can grow vertically. Nobody's growing vertically outside. So there are so many variables that need to be addressed from the manufacturing side. And then, which is going to lead to industry progression, which means our contractors, our installers, our growers are all going to become more familiar with these things. I know in the 90s when I started out, I hated emitter line, I hated drip line, it got clogged. I didn't know what pressure regulation was. Now you can't even buy a rotor, a contractor can't buy a rotor without pressure regulation. So, or shouldn't at least. So the industry has progressed. And so it's really up to us as contractors to continue to ask the questions. But I think that's a good problem to have. I mean, an industry growing with the resources that we do have, we're an open book, you know, let us know. And I think that that's going to lead to better products, because one thing I can say is the market needs better products. It needs things that are designated specifically for indoor growers. And what can we do as a manufacturer to support growers? You know, provide support resources like we talked about. We're making videos, we're making brochures, we're providing technical documents. I can't get my phone number and email out enough. You know, we really want to be there. We know that we have 30,000 products and now more with the new, you know, company. So we have so many different resources and solutions to offer. It's really about our customers coming forward and making sure that if we have the resource, we can work with them. If not, we want to beta test and give them something maybe new. We're always working on new innovations. We're working on things. So if maybe there's a problem, don't hesitate to bring up that problem. Maybe there's a void that we can fill with some product innovation, get you some samples. I love sending onesie twosies out and having people try power locks and mini pep line for the first time. You know, the beauty of these products is they're very much a commodity item. They're relatively inexpensive in nature, but the knowledge is very expensive. So let's install them right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another point you make here that's really important. Oftentimes we try to do things on our own, whether it's irrigation systems or, learning a sport. But as soon as you get that coach, you get that person that you can ask. So many times I found myself saying, man, I talked to you. I'm glad I talked to you because you just saved me so much time and trouble.
Yeah, and there's a rhythm to it. I worked in a call center when I was younger at Hunter for many years, and when you answer 10,000 calls in 2 years, you learn how to support so many different kinds of people, the visual aspect of it, the audible aspect of it, and so I can tell you a good support reach out for me is basically 2 or 3 emails, and then you don't hear from them again. If you're going back and forth more than 3 times, even as a contractor, that's good rule of thumb. If you're getting a homeowner calling you more than 2 or 3 times after a visit, you need to go back to the drawing board. And when I know it's a success is I get that initial description of a system, ask some questions, they come back with the results, I give them a solution, I don't hear from them again. Or they come back and they say, all right, some of that worked, some of it didn't. But as I said, you're right. Being able to bounce ideas off, I think there's a comfort level involved. And we know as a manufacturer that sets us apart because people say, I'll use whatever you tell me to use because you always answer the phone. So I do think part of this is an advertisement just for our support network as well.
Yeah. And then like you have this brochure here, we've got indoor growing design guides as well. I mean, this all exists on the JAIN's website, jainsusa.com. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we have a full technical brochures literature page. A lot of these I've built personally based on industry feedback, market feedback, working with customers. And so if anything's not on there, let me know. But yeah, I don't know of much support that we can't provide. I would in the future, I will say, as a teaser to everybody, like to do some more videos with some indoor support stuff. We've done kind of outdoor, but I think there's a lot of indoor stuff, installing air relief valves, installing octobubblers to trays, just simple tubing connections, things like this. This is something that I would like to do in the future because I do think there is a value in actually seeing somebody do it. And so that's something I'd like to do. So we have more to come. Like I said, some expansion on a couple of the things I mentioned, community outreach, getting some feedback from the market and the indoor grow industry is always huge. We're always at the big events, hearing it out. We're a very large company now, so there's not much we're not capable of or not capable of hearing. Beta testing new products and innovation. And then also, not only with our merger, but as we've mentioned lately, we've really settled into this market and we know that we're really good at supporting indoor growers. And so we're looking forward to providing some precision in the products that exist, maybe not combining existing products, but making things directly for the indoor grow industry. So if you got any ideas, we're open to yours. And my contact info.
So very nice. Okay. And then this is a layout that you're showing us too for a 4-way manifold layout. We saw the octobubblers. You've got information and documentation on how to do all of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have probably a half a dozen illustrations very similar to this. I love my technical illustrations. They require very to little, no translations. So in this case, we call these whips. There's single, 4-way, and 2-way and 4-way whips. The lengths of the tubing are different, but basically this allows us to pressure compensate and deliver the exact same amount of water, regardless of how much pressure is in a system, through individual outlets. So when you have a lot of tighter pot spacing or plant spacing, you're going to use a staking system like this.
Yeah. Well, that is fantastic, Michael. And wow, what a great amount of good knowledge we got today from you. I really appreciate that. It was very interesting and, as always, thought-provoking and educational as well. So really appreciate your time and your interest in this subject to really move all of us forward. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. We have all our video trainings at the jainsusa.com website /trainings, or just search as well as wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We extract all the audio out of these, and it's very exciting to me to know that people are out there working every day and educating at the same time. It's kind of a great 1-2 punch there, and always gets me excited about working in education and research. So thank you again, Michael, for helping us out today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and the news of the JAIN Rivulus merger was out big this week, and I'm excited to say that next week we're going to have the president of the new entity, John Vikapitz, is going to be on next week, Wednesday at noontime Pacific, and we're going to talk about all the good things that are in store for the industry and our customers. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Again, Michael, thanks very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right.